Chapter 3, Creating Your Competitive Advantage. To understand competitive advantage, let's take a question. What causes your company to generate superior financial returns within your industry? Let's say your company generates 40% return on equity and another competitor of yours generates 20% return on equity. So the difference is 20%. Why is it that you make more money, you make more profit than your competitor? The answer is competitive advantage. Your competitive advantage. You do something so well that people are willing to pay you more money. So how do you create your competitive advantage? That's this video's focus. And it starts with this book's chapter starts with this quote which I really loved, which is, if a man makes a better mousetrap than his neighbor, if a man makes a better mousetrap than his neighbor, though he has built his house in the woods, the world will make a path to his door. So if you do something really well as an employee, as a company, as an industry, then people will pay you more money. They'll find ways to your doorstep to get your services and use your products. Look at this. Within an iron and steel industry, we know that average return on equity versus cost of equity is negative. But even there, if you see Great Northern Iron, is 40% positive. Nucor, almost 8% positive. But majority of the industry is negative. So within industry also, you have a huge advantage to be better than the industry overall. And that's because these industries on the left have a better competitive advantage that they have built. Similarly, within pharmaceutical, average within pharmaceutical industry return on equity is positive, but there are still a bunch of these. Look at this, Genentech, Biogen, they're all negative, close to 60% negative, versus GlaxoSmith and Klein and others up of 20 to 50%, Amgen. So within the industry also there's lots of variation, and the only answer to this problem as to why is this the case is because these companies on the left have built better competitive advantage for themselves. And 20% of the profitability variation or the margin variation, 0 to 20% based on this book, is based on the industry. If you're in a poor industry, you're already stacked, your odds are against you by 20%. And if you are in a better industry and if you have a competitive advantage built in, you have 45% more variation added in a positive way. So huge impact. If you as an industry within your industry, if you're doing something really well, you get 45% boost. But if you're in a better industry, you get another 20% boost, and vice versa. So profitability comes down, competitive position comes down to profitability, and profitability comes down to two things. And the two factors that get you to building your competitive position is cost and differentiated product. If you have a low cost strategy, you have a competitive position. If you have a differentiated product that is so good in quality, so good in performance, has great features and something unique, solving problems that are not solved before, and it solves a real problem, you have a differentiated product. If you have one of these two, you have competitive position. And if you combine these two, you get the third variation, which is you might increase the cost a little to get even more differentiated product. So mid cost, higher differentiated product. So the two biggest factors for your competitive position is your cost and your differentiated product. So value is the concept to understand, which is what is your customer's willingness to pay minus supplier's cost, like all the costs that you associate with. And whatever the difference is the value, right? Let's take this example. If Steve Jobs was to find out, hey, is there value in producing this new iPhone back in, let's say, 2008, right? And he would say, hey, there is Nokia, there's Samsung, there's so many of these companies. So he would do this cost benefit analysis. He would say, hey, do I have a low cost strategy here? Do I have a differentiated product? And the answer to that was yes. Look, he broke all of this down into $245 to build versus he's now able to sell it at $749. So almost $505 of value. So the difference between what your customer's willingness to pay, which is the retail price, versus cost to build, which is your total cost, is the value, right? So there's value here. There's value because there's differentiated product, first time, fully touch screen with one button, and superior performance, and low cost compared to the value that are all positioned in that one phone. So how do you, is there like a systematic way to analyze your competitive position? And there is, and that's what this chapter deals with in quite a bit. So the three steps are finding out your cost activities, finding out all of your costs, customers, finding out your customers' willingness to pay, and then third, you will have a set of choices, and then you have to make certain choices. So let's get into each of these three steps. The first step is to do cost activity analysis. Find out your own cost position. Like, all break down, for your service, your product that you're trying to build and deliver, what are all the cost centers? What does it really take to build this product? And then it'll be hard at sometimes when you have to do a cost position analysis on the experience or the years of experience or knowledge, because if you're, let's say, in a service industry, it's hard because normal accounting rules, you'll not be able to say, hey, this is the cost of goods, right? You'll have to add up certain R&D functions and all of that. But understanding your costs is very important, and then understanding your competitors' costs, and then you can compare, like, hey, where am I spending too much and where is my competitor spending too much or too little, and what is the differences? Maybe you'll find out a lot from the strategy saying, hey, your competitor is actually building the entire product in a remote low cost country, right? And then their size is much bigger, but they have a low cost because they are building it all remote, versus you're trying to build it in the United States and it's much more expensive there. So that could be that. The size could be different, location could be different, the timing when your competitors get into market versus you, it could be different. You'd want to also compare comparables, right? Like, you don't want to compare like something in your company and your cost structure with something that's not comparable. So remember that, and then do your best to come up with like the biggest cost positions for your company and your competitors, and then try to see what the difference is between yours and your competitors. And then this is the creative second part, which is, what is your customer's willingness to pay? Imagine when Steve Jobs had to do this exercise, like, how did he get to that $500? Or back then it was $500, now it's 700, 750. There would be a lot of things, right? He would look at quality, look at performance, he'd look at features, he'd look at aesthetics, delivery, sales experience, the deeper understanding of the problem of the customers that he's trying to sell, right? So there has to be something unique that you're solving. And based on that, you would have to use your creative insights and use the data to support your insights to putting a number as to what is your customer's willingness to pay. It'll be difficult, but it's something that you'd have to do and adapt. And then once you do that, you'll have a set of options, right? How do you get to set of options? For each of your competitor, distill in 1 or 2 lines what is their key competitive position. Like, what is it that they do uniquely? Maybe they have cost of goods, maybe they use cheap products, maybe their cost of goods is low, maybe they use preservatives, and then they have to stock their inventories less because they just have things in the shelf. So you'll find out a lot of the things, 1 or 2 lines for each of your competitor. If you can distill what is the essence, and then find out, like, when you launch your product or when you take an option to exercise to build something new, what will be the reaction of your competitors, right? Anticipate that, and then also anticipate and think about your value chain. Like, what is the impact of you building something to your suppliers and to your customers? Do you have the strong support that you need from them? And then figure out some ways in which, like, that you're actually building for the future, meaning building for what's needed. So you would have to be aware of the demand that your customer has, your future customer, right? And where the product's actually supposed to go. And remember, these choices, these strategic choices as to what to do, where to invest, where not to invest, it's not going to be one solution. There's not always a one way to say, hey, this is the path to maximum profitability. Your leadership team and yourself, you'll have like a lot of choices. And so then you'll have to make trade-off decisions. Like, hey, we're going to invest in this, we're not going to invest in this. And those are going to be tough decisions because, there's resources are finite. You'd have to actually maximize for the best option out there. And sometimes you'd have to go down, significantly take down revenue guidance to have a long-term profitability path, right? And remember, typical big turnarounds or big investments don't really happen in incremental fashion. So the leadership really needs to buy into the work or the future demand of the product that you're trying to sell. And it all needs to come down with come together with a vision, right? You've deconstructed the costs. You looked at your competitor. You've broken down and compared a bunch of things, and you have strategies to compete with your competition, enhance your complementers, and various other things. But you have to build a vision that brings the entire company or your department together. Otherwise, those choices are just going to be harder and harder for the executives to make. Look at what Satya Nadella did, right? In 2014, this company, Microsoft, was very dominant in the 90s, but until like 2014, until he took over, um, there was no progress. He was like flat. It missed the mobile revolution. It missed the web revolution. It almost missed the cloud revolution, right? And then when he came, he said two things: cloud and mobile, right? And he didn't even say the word Windows. He turned the company around. He fixed the corporate culture in terms of like how they were stack ranking, and he did various things, but it took courage. And look what the impact is. When he was made the CEO, the stock price was around $40, and now it's almost 5 times $200 as of today, right? So turnarounds are possible. It takes a lot of intuition, a lot of guts, in an industry which didn't move like almost from 2000 to 2014. He did a huge impact here by the efforts that he did. Remember, this needs a lot of guts, needs a lot of action, decisive action, clear leadership to make this happen. So hopefully we can all build competitive advantage like Microsoft did in a major way, and get inspiration and move forward. Thanks.